There is a strange paradox in love. The more desperately you search for the one, the more it seems to slip through your fingers. Yet the moment you turn inward, strengthen your spirit, and understand the deeper laws of attraction within the psyche, something shifts. You stop chasing, and you start becoming. And it is in that becoming that the man of your dreams begins to move toward you. The first truth you must understand is that love is not found, it is mirrored. The partner you long for is often a reflection of the qualities sleeping within you. If you desire a man who is confident, grounded, emotionally intelligent, and purposeful, you must ask yourself, have you cultivated these energies within your own soul? The unconscious is drawn to what feels familiar. When you embody strength and depth, you unconsciously signal to a man of equal depth that you are safe to approach. The second key is wholeness. Many people seek relationships to escape loneliness, boredom, or insecurity. But when you seek a man to complete you, you unconsciously place a burden on him. True attraction begins when you are already complete within yourself. A woman who is fulfilled by her own mission, passions, and self-respect radiates a magnetic independence. She does not cling, she chooses. And being chosen by someone who has options is infinitely more powerful than being needed by someone who feels empty. The third key is understanding your shadow. We all carry hidden fears: fear of abandonment, fear of rejection, fear of not being enough. If these remain unconscious, they quietly sabotage love. You may push away good men, chase unavailable ones, or recreate painful patterns. When you face your shadow with courage, you break the cycle. You stop confusing chaos with passion. You begin to recognize healthy love when it stands before you. The fourth key is emotional depth over surface charm. The man of your dreams is not merely a handsome face or smooth talker. He is someone whose inner world resonates with yours. When you value substance over superficial validation, you naturally filter out distractions. You become patient. You no longer settle for attention. You wait for connection. The fifth key is surrender. Not passive waiting, but active trust. Obsession creates tension. Trust creates flow. When you align your actions with your values and release the need to control timing, life often brings unexpected encounters. Love arrives when your energy says, I am ready, not when your fear says, I am desperate. And here is the hidden truth. The man of your dreams is also searching. He too is evolving, learning, healing. When two individuals commit to inner growth, their paths inevitably cross. It may not happen through force. It may not follow your timeline. But when you embody clarity, confidence, and consciousness, you become visible to the kind of man who recognizes those qualities. So do not chase shadows, become light. Do not beg for love, become worthy of the love you desire. When you understand these keys, not just intellectually but emotionally, you transform from someone who waits to be chosen into someone who attracts with quiet certainty. And when that happens, the man of your dreams does not need to be hunted. He finds you. Love is not something that simply happens to you, it is something that reflects you. The people you feel drawn to are rarely random. They awaken familiar emotions, familiar wounds, familiar longings. This is because attraction often operates through the unconscious. You are magnetized not only to beauty or charm, but to qualities that echo parts of yourself, both the developed and the undeveloped. If you crave strength, it may be because you are learning to claim your own. If you are drawn to emotionally distant partners, it may mirror a distance you have from your own feelings. Love becomes a psychological mirror, revealing what is alive within you. When you understand this, relationships stop being accidents and start becoming revelations. Instead of asking, why do I keep attracting the same type of man? You begin asking, what part of me is resonating with this pattern? The outer world reflects the inner state. Confidence attracts confidence because it recognizes itself. Insecurity attracts reassurance or control because it seeks stabilization. Your energy speaks before your words do. The way you see yourself silently teaches others how to see you. This mirror can be uncomfortable. It exposes jealousy, fear of abandonment, the need for validation, or the hunger to be chosen. But these reflections are not punishments, they are invitations to grow. When you react strongly to someone, whether with intense admiration or irritation, it often signals that they are activating a hidden aspect of you. The qualities you idolize may be strengths you have not fully embraced. The traits you criticize may be shadows you have denied within yourself. As you become more self-aware, your attractions begin to change. When you cultivate emotional stability, chaotic connections lose their appeal. When you build self-respect, disrespect becomes intolerable. The mirror shifts. because you have shifted. Love starts reflecting your maturity instead of your wounds. This is why inner work is not separate from romantic destiny. It shapes it. The more conscious you become, the clearer your reflection. And when you embody the qualities you seek, integrity, depth, kindness, strength, you naturally draw someone who recognizes those traits, not because you demanded it, but because resonance cannot be forced. It simply aligns. Wholeness is an energy that cannot be faked. It is the quiet stability of someone who is not searching for rescue, validation, or completion in another person. When you are whole, you do not approach love from a place of lack, you approach it from abundance. This shift changes everything. Desperation repels because it feels like pressure, like an unspoken demand to fill an emotional void. Wholeness attracts because it feels light, grounded, and free. It signals that love is a choice, not a necessity for survival. Many people enter relationships hoping another person will silence their insecurities, heal their loneliness, or give their life direction. But when you rely on someone else to carry your emotional weight, the connection becomes fragile. Subtle expectations form. Fear of loss intensifies. You cling not because you love deeply, but because you are afraid to return to emptiness. True magnetism begins when you have already faced that emptiness and learned to sit with it. When you discover that you can comfort yourself, motivate yourself, and validate yourself, your presence becomes steady rather than needy. A whole person has a life that exists beyond romance. There are passions, friendships, goals, and a personal sense of meaning. This independence is not coldness, it is balance. It communicates that you desire partnership, but you do not depend on it to define your worth. Ironically, this makes others value you more. When someone senses that you are fulfilled on your own, they understand that being with you is a privilege, not a duty. Your time, attention, and affection feel earned rather than automatically available. Wholeness also sharpens your standards. When you are not desperate to avoid being alone, you can walk away from what does not align with your values. You no longer tolerate inconsistency, disrespect, or emotional unavailability simply to keep someone close. Your boundaries become clear, not aggressive, but firm. And boundaries are attractive because they reveal self-respect. As you build this inner completeness, your energy shifts from grasping to inviting. You listen more calmly, you respond rather than react, you choose rather than chase. This grounded confidence creates a natural pull. It is not loud or attention-seeking, it is subtle and powerful. Wholeness does not shout for love. It stands rooted, and in that rooted presence, the right person feels safe to come closer. To heal your shadow is to turn toward the parts of yourself you were taught to hide. The shadow is not evil, it is simply the collection of traits, fears, desires, and wounds that were pushed out of awareness because they felt unacceptable. It holds your insecurity, your jealousy, your anger, your fear of abandonment, and even your untapped power. When ignored, these hidden elements quietly influence your relationships. They shape who you choose, how you react, and what you tolerate. When faced, they become sources of strength and clarity. Unhealed shadow often disguises itself as attraction. You may feel intensely drawn to someone emotionally unavailable because it mirrors a wound from your past. You may chase validation from partners who withhold affection because a part of you is still trying to prove your worth. These patterns feel like fate, but they are often unconscious repetitions. The psyche seeks resolution. It recreates familiar pain in the hope of mastering it. Without awareness, you relive the same story with different faces. Healing begins with radical honesty. Instead of blaming every failed connection on the other person, you ask yourself uncomfortable questions. Why does rejection trigger me so deeply? Why do I fear being alone? Why do I equate chaos with passion? This self-inquiry is not about self-criticism. It is about self-responsibility. When you recognize your triggers, they lose their power to control you. You begin responding from consciousness rather than reacting from old wounds. Shadow work also means reclaiming qualities you once suppressed. Perhaps you were taught that expressing anger makes you difficult, so you became overly agreeable. Perhaps you learned that needing reassurance makes you weak, so you pretend to be detached. Over time, these denied parts accumulate pressure. They surface in passive aggression, resentment, or emotional explosions. When you allow yourself to feel and integrate these emotions in healthy ways, you become more authentic. You stop performing a version of yourself designed to be chosen and start living as your real self. As your shadow heals, your taste in love changes. You no longer mistake intensity for intimacy. You recognize red flags without romanticizing them. You feel less threatened by vulnerability because you have faced your own darkness. The more you accept your imperfections, the less you fear someone discovering them. This inner integration creates stability. Instead of seeking someone to fix your wounds, you seek someone to grow beside you. And that shift transforms not only who you attract, but how deeply you are capable of loving. To seek depth rather than validation is to shift your focus from being admired to being understood. Validation is intoxicating. Compliments, attention, constant messages, and public displays of desire can make you feel chosen and important. But validation is often surface level. It feeds the ego without nourishing the soul. Depth, on the other hand, requires patience. It asks for vulnerability, honesty, and emotional presence. It is quieter than attention, but far more sustaining. When you prioritize validation, you may unconsciously chase people who give you temporary highs. You become attached to how they make you feel about yourself rather than who they truly are. If they withdraw attention, anxiety rises. If they praise you, you feel secure. Your emotional state becomes dependent on their reactions. This dynamic creates instability because validation is inconsistent by nature. It fluctuates with mood, circumstance, and interest. Depth operates differently. It is built through meaningful conversations, shared values, mutual respect, and emotional safety. A deep connection is not threatened by silence or distance because it is rooted in understanding rather than performance. When someone sees your fears, your dreams, your contradictions, and still chooses to stay, that connection carries weight. It does not need constant display because it is internally secure. Choosing depth also requires you to examine your own motives. Are you sharing your true thoughts, or are you crafting an image to be liked? Are you expressing your needs, or are you adapting to avoid disapproval? Depth demands authenticity. It asks you to risk being misunderstood in order to be genuinely known. This can feel uncomfortable, especially if you are used to shaping yourself to fit others' expectations. Yet without authenticity, no real intimacy can form. When you value depth, your standards rise. You are less impressed by charm alone. You listen for consistency, integrity, and emotional intelligence. You notice whether someone can sit with difficult conversations rather than escape them. You begin to appreciate steady presence more than dramatic gestures. This shift naturally filters out connections built solely on excitement or external approval. Over time, seeking depth transforms your relationships. You feel calmer, less reactive, and more grounded. You are not constantly questioning where you stand because clarity replaces guesswork. Instead of chasing attention, you cultivate connection. And in doing so, you move from fleeting validation to a bond that strengthens with time, honesty, and shared growth. To trust the process is to release the illusion that love can be forced, timed, or controlled by sheer will. The mind craves certainty. It wants guarantees, deadlines, and clear outcomes. It asks, when will I meet him? Why hasn't it happened yet? What am I doing wrong? But love does not respond well to pressure. The more tightly you try to grip it, the more anxious and reactive you become. Trust begins where control ends. When you do not trust the process, every delay feels personal. Every failed connection feels like proof that something is missing within you. You may rush into relationships out of fear of falling behind, or cling to unsuitable partners because uncertainty feels unbearable. Impatience clouds discernment. You start chasing potential instead of compatibility. In contrast, trust creates emotional steadiness. It allows you to walk away from what is wrong without panicking that nothing better will come. Trusting the process does not mean passive waiting. It means active alignment. You continue growing, healing, expanding your world, and refining your standards. You say no when something feels misaligned. You say yes when something feels healthy and reciprocal. You focus on becoming the kind of person who can sustain the love you desire. Instead of obsessing over when it will happen, you prepare yourself for when it does. There is also a deeper understanding within trust. Timing shapes people. You may meet someone wonderful at the wrong stage of growth, and the connection will falter despite strong feelings. Rather than viewing this as failure, trust recognizes that maturity unfolds in layers. Both you and the person meant for you are evolving. Experiences that feel like detours are often lessons strengthening your discernment, resilience, and clarity. Trust calms comparison as well. Watching others enter relationships can stir doubt or envy, but each path is uniquely structured. When you trust, you stop measuring your timeline against someone else's. You understand that rushing to quiet insecurity often leads to settling. Patience, though uncomfortable, protects you from choices rooted in fear. As trust deepens, anxiety loosens its grip. You no longer interpret every silence as rejection or every delay as loss. You remain open but grounded. You invest without desperation. You allow connection to unfold naturally, revealing its true quality over time. In that steadiness, you create space for a relationship built not on urgency, but on readiness and mutual growth. To become rather than chase is to understand that what you pursue frantically often moves further away, while what you embody naturally begins to gravitate toward you. Chasing is rooted in fear, the fear of not being chosen, not being enough, not being seen. It creates urgency in your tone, anxiety in your actions, and attachment to outcomes you cannot control. When you chase, your focus narrows to one person or one possibility, and your sense of worth subtly becomes dependent on their response. Becoming is different. It shifts your attention inward. Instead of asking, how do I make him want me? You ask, who am I becoming in the process? Chasing drains energy because it revolves around external validation. Becoming generates energy because it centers on growth. When you invest in your mind, your health, your passions, and your emotional maturity, you are not waiting for love. You are expanding your life. This expansion creates confidence that is not performative but deeply rooted. When you chase, you may ignore red flags, overextend yourself, or silence your needs to maintain interest. You adapt excessively, hoping flexibility will secure affection. Over time, resentment builds because you have abandoned parts of yourself. Becoming requires the opposite. It asks you to strengthen your boundaries, clarify your values, and honor your standards even if it risks losing someone. It is a quiet declaration that your identity is not negotiable for attention. There is also a psychological shift that occurs when you stop chasing. You begin to observe rather than pursue. You allow someone to reveal who they are without trying to convince them to stay. This detachment is not indifference, it is self-respect. It communicates that you are open to connection but not desperate for it. Ironically, this calm assurance is deeply attractive because it signals emotional stability. Becoming also means refining the qualities you desire in a partner within yourself. If you seek ambition, cultivate your own discipline. If you seek emotional intelligence, deepen your self-awareness. If you seek loyalty, practice integrity. In doing so, you naturally align with people who resonate at that level. Attraction shifts from chemistry alone to compatibility and shared depth. As you focus on becoming, your life grows fuller. You are no longer waiting in suspension for romance to begin living. You are already alive, engaged, evolving. And from that place of fullness, love does not feel like a rescue mission. It feels like a meeting between two individuals who have chosen growth over desperation and presence over pursuit. And so, understand this, the man of your dreams is not a reward for longing. He is a reflection of alignment. Every lesson you embrace, every wound you heal, every boundary you honor is shaping the kind of love you are preparing to receive. Nothing is wasted. The waiting is not empty. The solitude is not punishment. It is preparation. When you choose depth over validation, wholeness over need, trust over control, and growth over chasing, you shift from seeking love to embodying it. And embodied love carries a quiet power. It does not beg. It does not rush. It does not shrink to fit someone else's comfort. It stands steady in its own worth. One day, without force or performance, you will meet someone who recognizes that steadiness, not because you convinced him, not because you pursued him, but because he sees in you what he has been cultivating within himself. Two paths, shaped by self-awareness and courage, crossing at the right time. So keep becoming, keep refining, keep trusting. The right man will not need to be chased. He will recognize you.